The second price hike is hitting the consoles.
Balls.
Just a quick heads up that this Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, aka tomorrow, I'm going to be having a members-only stream where we play American Truck Simulator and Sim City for the SNES. So make sure you come through. The birds will be there, and they're very excited. They don't have memberships, though, and that makes me angry. And I've asked them many times to get one, and they refuse, but whatever. It's fine.
Oh, dude, 4 strength, 4 stam, leather belt.
So just to give you some backstory on tariffs and price increases and why this is happening, over the past weekend, the Trump administration and China met in Geneva to discuss tariffs. And the tariffs were lowered significantly. Now, before the Trump administration took office, for the past 7 years, tariffs floated on Chinese imports between 10 and 20%. When Trump took office, he increased tariffs to China to 145%, which is essentially an embargo. And China was putting a tariff on our goods imported to China to 125%. So it was basically a complete standstill, a temporary decoupling of both economies, which is a really big deal because a lot of our goods, a ton of our goods, are made in China. Now, 30% is what the tariffs are now with this 90-day pause they agreed to in Geneva, both the U.S. and China. Now, keep in mind, this is a good thing. The tariffs dropped to 30% on Chinese imports, but that's still 10% more, approximately, to what they were before this whole tariff disaster happened. Now, goods technically are only being tariffed by the U.S. from China to 10%, but they also have a fentanyl tariff, which is additional 20% on all Chinese imports because they're trying to do more about fentanyl being imported from China and fentanyl chemicals that are used to make fentanyl being imported from China. So there's that. So they're making it, there's a 30% tariff across the board because of fentanyl. I don't want to get too political, but do you think it's going to curb any issues with fentanyl? I say no. Why am I telling you all this, though? Because this is making Sony mull over if they should increase the price of the PlayStation 5. Again. Now, this isn't the first time that Sony has increased prices. In the States where I am, we actually dodged a bullet with that. But there were other regions around the world in 2022 where Sony increased the price of the PS5. Sony increased the prices in Europe, the UK, Canada, Mexico, Australia, Japan, and China. And that was back in 2022, and Sony at the time blamed inflation. Now, even though they haven't raised the price of the PS5 and PS5 Pro, again, this time they are blaming the tariffs. Because keep in mind, tariffs are still a thing, and even with this 90-day pause on the huge tariff increase that the United States imposed on China, it's still about a 10% increase, like I said before, and Sony is going to feel it. And if you're a consumer of PlayStation products, you're also going to feel it as well. This comes from GameSpot.com. I'll read it to you, then we'll discuss. Sony is bracing itself for a $680 million impact from U.S. tariffs, and to compensate for those potential losses, the PlayStation manufacturer might pass the increasing cost to its customers. During the company's earnings call, Sony CFO Lin Tao told investors that price increases on its hardware are being considered, although the PS5 console was not mentioned specifically. Which, come on. They're just going to raise it on the PlayStation headset. No, that's gonna make up for how much more they're paying in tariffs. So don't worry, the consoles will be fine. Just going to be the headset. Like, it's going to be the consoles. It's going to be the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. Give me a break. Continuing, CEO Hiroki Totoki did discuss the prospect of some PS5 console manufacturing being moved to the U.S., Most of its consoles are produced in China and are subject to a 30% tariff for now, as this would be an efficient strategy to avoid being caught in the crossfire of US President Donald Trump's tariffs. This hardware can be produced locally, Totoki said during the earnings call via a translator. I think that would be an efficient strategy. PS5s are being manufactured in many areas. Whether it's going to be manufactured in the US or not, it needs to be considered going forward. But Daniel Ahmad, who's an industry insider and analyst, said, yeah, them manufacturing PS5s in the States is not happening. Sony was asked the question if they would manufacture in the States, and they said, we're not at the point that we have to consider that. So I would say it's not going to be a thing. If I'm wrong, but I don't see it happening. Now, some of you, understandably so, may be saying, Rich, this doesn't guarantee that they're going to increase the price of the consoles. They're just pondering it. For Sony to be publicly pondering it, they're going to. I would say I'll give it an 80% chance. And again, if I'm wrong, I'll eat it and say that I was wrong about it. But they're seeing that other companies are doing it. Microsoft, we know, increased the prices of their consoles quite a damn bit. And Sony, with the tariff increase on Chinese imports, they're like, yeah, we don't want to eat any of this. We rather make our hardware more expensive and have the consumer actually help us eat these tariff costs. And if they see that Microsoft is doing it, they're going to do it. And what bothers me too is that even if Sony could eat some of these costs, remember, they're actually going to take a $680 million hit. That's nothing to sneeze at. They're just like, hey, Microsoft's doing the same thing. And again, it's something where the industry sees that the consumer is being conditioned, okay? It was actually considered the norm in the past that as the generation went on, especially towards the twilight of the current generation, we are almost 5 years in to the 9th generation of consoles, which is insane to me. Time is going by too fast. But it used to be a thing that console prices used to decrease. You used to get a revision. The prices used to go down. And they were, especially towards the cusp of a new generation, the current generation would be super affordable. And now it's the exact opposite. Not only are prices staying the same for current gen hardware, now we're seeing where they could possibly increase. And to me, that's insane. I understand that corporations are in the business of making money and they don't want to eat all of these tariff costs. But seeing dated old hardware, let's just keep it real at this point. The consoles are half a decade old from Sony and Microsoft, or soon to be, going up in price and becoming less affordable is absolutely insane. And again, like I've talked about before, it's making this hobby much less appealing, and it's making something that is supposed to be affordable and for everybody be something that people are like, I have to keep my lights on. I'm going to pass on a system from Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. So time will tell how this works out. I hope I'm wrong and Sony doesn't increase the price of the PlayStation 5 and PS5 Pro, but I just have this bad feeling that they're going to, especially that their other big competitor just did the same thing. This is Rich of Tomorrow, signing out. Have a good one.
Hey, if you watched the whole video, what the hell are you doing? You're not subbed yet? Click that sub button. I live stream here all the time. We have a good time. Make sure to become a subscriber. It's free. Click the button now and hit that bell too. Be a man.